Alright, welcome back ladies and gentlemen to the Chupacabra tutorials channel. I'm your host Larry, and today I'm going to be doing a little walkthrough on server permissions and creating roles and kind of walk you through what each one of the permissions does, what it means, and when I might suggest you use it. As a part of this, I'm also going to create a couple of sample roles so that you can get an idea of how I've got things set up and why. So when you want to access your roles and server permissions, all you have to do is get into your server, the one that you either have admin status and the ability to edit server roles in, or one that you own. And then up here in the upper left-hand corner is the name of your server and this little down arrow. This is where all your options are for your server, and we literally just want the one called server settings. Inside of here is a whole host of different information, but what we want right now is the roles window, which is the second tab over here on the left-hand sidebar. And here you have a list of all of the ranks or roles or permission settings that you've got set up for your server. Here you can see I gave myself one that really doesn't do anything because I'm the server owner. I have all the powers ever anyway, so this role is relatively meaningless. I just set this up so I can have a little name tag in the sidebar so people know who they're talking to. Likewise, I've got my admin and all that stuff here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create another general purpose role that can kind of serve for a reward for people who come onto the server and are an active member of the community. And I also want to create a couple of roles that would allow people to come in and to get feedback on the bots and other stuff that they're developing to use on places like Discord. I mean, I don't really limit it. If you're a developer and you want to hang out and talk, by all means, come on in. So let's start with, what does everybody get for a basic permission? Well, not a lot on this server. So let's just walk through and talk about what every last permission does inside of here. So up here at the top, you can determine a name, and then you can label this name some color. That way, as you see here in the sidebar, different people show up as different colored types of users. So I'm blue, the admin is red, the moderator is purple, everybody else is some kind of flavor of green or blue from there on, and I just kind of mix and match as I go. And then the bots are this kind of crispy purple or orange color. That way you can always tell what bots are installed currently on my server that you might want to test out from one of my tutorials. So moving on from there, let's open this back up. So from here, from the colors, you have the new option. This is actually new. If you want to test a role to see what it's capable of doing to make sure you set the permissions up correctly, you can click on this button and you can view the server as that rank. So that way you can test it to make sure it's not broken. Next up, display role members separately from online members. You see how these people in the sidebar appear in their own little section? That's what that does. It makes them appear separately in the sidebar so that you can distinguish them from everybody else. Next up, we have allow people to mention that role directly via its name. I generally leave this off except for admins and moderators because otherwise people just have another avenue to spam each other, and I don't find that necessary. But it's a great tool to ping your moderators, to ping your admins that something bad is going on the server and needs their attention. I highly recommend, if you do allow people to use this, that you punish people for abusing it by either kicking them or banning them temporarily. Alright, so next up we have view channels. By default, this is usually on so that when you enter a server, even if you're blocked from just chatting in those servers or sending messages in those other channels, you can at least see them. You can set it up, but by default, anybody who logs into your server cannot see anything until you have approved of that person's existence. They prove that they have accepted your server's rules, then you give them a basic member rank to see channels. So if you disable this, they can't see anything. Usually if you want to make private channels, you do that separately. Manage channels, this allows them to do things like edit the name, delete them, create them, change some of the permissions, change some of the settings inside of them. If you want people to be able to manage channels, that's how you do so. Managing roles allows people to edit the roles like I'm doing right now. Managing emojis. Every server has a bunch of emojis that you can upload and use as your own custom emojis. If you give people the ability to manage those, they can upload them, delete them, change the name of them, whatever they want, they can do that. View the audit log. So every server comes with an audit log, which is currently disabled. Let me disable streamer mode so I can show you what that looks like. So every server comes with an audit log, and it tells you what people have done. In this case, it tells you that, well, this guy created a bunch of random invites for some reason. It tells you what people have done, what channels that they've updated, edited, if people have deleted stuff, added stuff, all of that things is usually kept here. So if someone can view that audit log, that means that they can see all the changes that admins and moderators and other people have done on the server. And there's usually quite a bit of information. I don't feel like there's anything bad in letting people see that. It just lets people know what's going on the server. I let my moderators and admins see that just fine. Managing audit log, view server insights. So server insights is over here. It tells you what your traffic is on your server and what's going on. So seeing that would allow people to see what's going on in their server insights. So if you want to be able to allow people to manage webhooks, those are kind of an integration with stuff on the web. It allows them to see, or allows things to post messages from other apps or sites onto the server. It's usually used by bots or automatic posting bots that, like, say, grab a Twitch streamer you like and post whenever they go live. It's stuff like that. It's integrations with web tools like bots so that they can post on your server. If you want people to be able to manage and delete those, you can enable and disable that here. Managing the server, that allows people to manage the server's name, what region it's currently set to, adding bots and all that stuff. So if you need to be able to allow people to add and remove bots and change those settings, manage server is where you need to go to do that. Creating an instant server invite. I don't really care who has this power because I have a public server. If you want to closely control who's allowed to create more invites so that you can track who's inviting who to the server, you can disable this. Changing nicknames. Sometimes people try to confuse admins and moderators by changing their name a lot. If you want to be able to tell who people are and disable the ability to do that, you can disable the permission here. I disable change nickname because people like to try to mess with myself and my admins. It 90% of the time doesn't work because I'm not dumb, but just because it's a headache, I disable that. If you're a long-term member, you earn that right back. Kick members. Do you want people to be able to kick people from the server? Yes or no? What is a kick? Kicking someone from the server means they're no longer on the server, but they can rejoin the server at any time if somebody invites them. Banning people down here, allowing people to be banned from the server. Giving someone that power kicks somebody and they can't come back unless you remove them manually from the ban list. Similarly, sending messages allows people to send messages in text channels. Embedding links, when you post a link and it automatically grabs like a little preview window of whatever website you just linked, that's an embedded link. You can give people the ability to do that, or if you find that feature annoying, you can disable it. You can allow people to upload files and attach them to their posts on the server with attached files. You can allow people to react to things like, say, I don't know, this guy said hi. We can click on this and we can add like a thumbs up. That's what that means. If you don't care, I would leave it on. People like to use it, but just note that it's also a way that people can grief things by spelling out rude things using emojis. So just be aware that that's a thing. You might have to clear those emojis from a post if people are abusing that permission. So continuing down here, we had embed stuff, add reactions, use external emoji. You can actually disable people from being able to use emojis from other servers. This could be important if people are abusing the privilege because they're using it to post like offensive things that they have on their personal server they don't invite anyone to. If you need to, you can disable that here. I never let anybody mention @everybody who isn't an admin, a moderator, or myself because it's, again, used to spam. So if you need to disable @everyone, @here messages, you can do that here. Managing messages allows people to delete other people's messages and pin messages. If you want people to be able to do those two things, you can enable that here. Reading message history means they can read everything that's ever happened in a channel. If you need to disable that because you don't want people to read back 10 years in history to see stuff, you can. It gets kind of wonky and buggy depending on the update to Discord. Sometimes, unless you're physically staring at a channel all the time, some of the messages will just disappear. It's generally a good idea if you want people to read messages to be able to read message history just so things don't get weird. Sending text-to-speech messages. Text-to-speech is when you type /TTS and some message and the computer physically reads it to everybody on the server who's currently clicked onto that channel. It can be a very powerful tool. It can be fantastic if somebody doesn't have a microphone so that they can communicate with people without someone having to have a second monitor to read stuff. I leave it off for general purpose people because I don't trust them not to use it to spam people. I've been on servers that do that. It's super annoying. You can also use basic / commands. That's a newer feature. You can enable people to, or you can enable or disable that feature here. Voice is pretty straightforward. Do you want people to be able to connect to voice channels? Do you want people to be able to speak inside of a channel? You can enable people to connect but not speak, which means they'll load into a given channel muted, and then you as the server owner or somebody with moderator powers can unmute them when you feel like it's their turn to talk. Great if you're a YouTuber, great if you're a Twitch streamer, and it can even be handy if you want to do like an audience sort of setup for streaming in different formats. Do you want people to be able to share their video screen in a channel? That's pretty self-explanatory. Do you want to let people use their voice activity? Sometimes people have terrible microphones. Sometimes it's super annoying to hear garbled nonsense in the background, kids screaming, grandpa coughing, dogs barking. If you get sick of it, disable this. Priority speaker is a nice feature. It basically gives one person priority over everybody else so they can automatically talk over them. Everybody else's volume is lowered when this person speaks. It's a great tool for like teaching seminars, for trying to coordinate when you're playing a game and somebody is in charge, all those sorts of things. Being able to mute somebody is pretty simple. You mute them, they can't talk. Deafening people is very similar, except instead of not being able to talk, they can't hear anything going on. You can move members between channels by clicking and dragging them between voice channels. Really handy feature. I totally recommend giving more advanced veteran users of your server the ability to do that. You can also set stage channel permissions. Stage is a new thing for putting on performances. It's kind of like having a podcast of speakers, and then they can stream to everybody, and then you can have a room full of people who are the audience. And then you can request to speak so that the stage moderators can manually approve somebody in the audience to talk briefly onto the stream. And then the most advanced permission, do you want to make someone an admin or not? Admin is the magnum opus of permissions. It turns people into basically a co-owner of the server, basically. It gives people almost every single permission on the list, so just be careful who you give it to. People can log into any channel, see any chat, whatever. It's possible to make a moderator and not give them admin powers. I would only give people you absolutely trust admin powers, because otherwise shenanigans can occur. So as an example, let's create a new user. Let's call this the developer role, because that's a simple thing to remember. Let's add this new role back up at the top here. Let's call this new role developer. And then this role can be, what color have we not used? Well, we can just pick a color manually. We haven't picked like a reddy kind of orange in a while. Let's do like a crispy orange. Let's kind of make that a little bit more red. A orange, that works. That's developer. And then what do I want developers to be able to do? I want them to be displayed separately. And I don't need people to mention that role directly. They should be able to view channels. They don't need to be able to manage channels. They don't need to be able to manage roles or emojis or view the audit log or view server insights. They can create server invites. They can change nicknames of themselves. Managing nicknames and other people, I don't necessarily feel like random members should have that ability because it can be abused. They don't need to be able to kick or ban people. They should be able to send messages, embed links, attach files, add reactions, use external emoji. I don't feel like they need this though. I very rarely let anyone have the ability to message at everyone, again because it gets abused. They can read message history, and I am going to allow them to send text-to-speech messages so it's easier for people to connect and to chat with people who are in voice. I will allow them to share their video screen. They are allowed to use voice activity. I'm not going to give them priority speaker or mute and deafen powers. They can move people. That's fine. I don't mind that. If they abuse it, I can always take it away later. And that looks good. We'll save that as a new role. And I'll pull it up here so it appears kind of in with content creators in the grand scheme of things. In fact, let's change content creators. Let's give them kind of like a teal-y color to their name, just to distinguish them a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. Just to make sure it doesn't look like my color. It's kind of hard sometimes to pick colors. You quickly end up with duplicates. And so if we wanted to just create another generic role for people that's sort of like cryptid, we could then just go create a new role. We'll call them the Chimera. We'll make them kind of like a yellow. And then we'll display them separately. People don't need to be able to mention that role. They're not going to be able to manage channels or roles. But they can change their nicknames. They don't need to be able to kick members. They can also use text-to-speech when I get down to that portion. And then I will allow them to use video. I will allow them to move members. And that looks good. Now, if I was going to create a new type of admin, let's say I was going to create an admin role. If I was going to do that, I would go here. And then we'll call this backup admin. Backup admin. And I would give them a scary pink red role. And then I would say they get all the good powers. They can manage channels, manage roles, manage emojis, view the audit log, the insights, the webhooks, manage the server. They can manage nicknames, change nicknames, kick members, ban members. They can pretty much do everything, honestly. If I'm making an admin, I'm not going to half-bake this. I'm going to go full bore. And then this is the difference down here. By giving somebody all those powers, they can just be a server moderator. And they won't have the ability to trump a lot of stuff. But if I give them the ability to be an administrator, they will be able to bypass channel-specific permissions and restrictions, and then they have basically the powers of a co-owner. So this is how you give people administrator powers. If you wanted to just make somebody a moderator, then I would disable this, and I would go back up and I would say they can manage channels, they don't need to manage roles, they can manage emojis, they don't need well, actually, I'll let them view the audit log. I feel like that's an honesty thing, personally. They don't need to see the server insights. They don't need to manage webhooks. They don't need to manage the server. This is more of an admin thing, in my opinion. They can create invites, change people's nicknames, kick members, and ban members. And pretty much the rest of these are all just fine. They can move members and all that. I just don't feel like every moderator on your server needs the ability to be an admin and to have access to your back admin panel. But just remember, this is like everything. Clicking this basically gives somebody the power to do everything on the server. I think you can still block people who have admin from being able to do some of the stuff, like change your server region. But if you trust somebody enough to give them administrator, you might as well give them the rest of the powers. So I could do that now. I could save that. I could put this up here with the other admin, and we'd be good. But since I only need one admin role, I'm actually going to delete the backup admin with the button at the bottom. But that gives you an idea of what you're looking at for server permissions, what they all do, and a couple of examples to use those to create some basic users. Now, by default, those are basic roles that you've just edited. If you want to get more specific and lock people out of certain channels, and make people admins of a specific channel, you would do that over here through this gear panel, editing the channel, and then there's a specific permission system on each one of the channels and categories that you make, where you can get more specific than that and say, like, this person's got control over these channels, but not these channels, through a similar system. And these are all basically the same. They're all straightforward and they're all pretty well explained. Just go through. If you want someone to have specific permissions in a given channel, you certainly can. So that'll be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I've been your host, Larry. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. If you have any questions about permissions, if you got a specific scenario that you want to set permissions up for, and you need some help, or you need like a second opinion, give me a shout in the comment section. I can't promise I'll answer every set of questions, because I get hundreds of these a day now, but I will try to answer as many questions as I can. So until next time, I've been your host, Larry. Don't forget to like and subscribe, especially if you found this video helpful, and I'll catch you next time. Bye, everybody, and have a good one.